Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us again today. The effects of COVID-19 have been widespread and have placed unimaginable strain on our people, our economy, and our resources. We have seen firsthand the resiliency of islanders in helping us chart a safe path forward, focused on protecting the health of islanders first and foremost. We are finding new ways to support industries, businesses, the workers, ensure island students are learning, and to stay connected with our loved ones. Prince Edward Island is such a special place because of our people and because we are so successful because of our workers. The global pandemic has placed significant extra demands on our essential workers in sectors that support our food chain supply, transportation, healthcare, and others. They have remained unwavering in their commitment to serving islanders during these exceptionally challenging times. Over the past 8 weeks, our essential workers have been there for us. Now it's time for us to provide support for them. The federal government announced a wage top-up program on April 15th, which included an envelope of money for Prince Edward Island totaling $16.7 million. When it was initially announced by the federal government, the program was designed for healthcare workers making less than $2,500 per month. When we looked at the criteria and applied that to the workforce on Prince Edward Island, specifically workers in long-term care and community care facilities, approximately 18%, or 350 islanders, would be eligible for this program. Under the initial criteria from the federal government, we would have only been able to access $800,000 of that $16.7 million that was allocated for our province. In working with my federal counterpart, Minister Morneau, and with Premier King, working with the Deputy Prime Minister Freeland, and with Prime Minister Trudeau, we strongly advocated to broaden the criteria to allow us to use every penny allocated for our province for our essential workers. We didn't want to leave any money on the table. We wanted to give all essential workers who have continued to work through COVID-19 an opportunity to access these funds. After successfully lobbying the federal government, they approved our submission to broaden the criteria to include all essential workers who have been working through the pandemic and who make less than $3,000 per 4-week period. By spreading the benefit to a greater number of essential workers, there will be now 17,000 islanders included in this program, and we will be able to access and use the entire $16.7 million allotment from the federal government to benefit island workers. Every employee who is deemed an essential worker making under $3,000 during a 4-week period will get a one-time payment of $1,000 that will be administered through their employer. Our provinces and jurisdictions have decided to go other ways with this program. Some have elected to focus exclusively on healthcare, leaving essential workers in other sectors without benefit. We didn't agree with this approach and felt that all essential workers across Prince Edward Island earning less than $3,000 per 4-week period should benefit. Employers will be required to complete the application for the COVID-19 incentive to support essential workers on behalf of their employees, estimating the number of eligible employees who fit within the criteria. More information on COVID-19 incentive to support essential workers, including applications, will be available on the COVID for Business webpage at www.princeedwardisland.ca/COVID for Business. As I have said before, we are in a very good economic place before the pandemic because of hardworking islanders. It is because of the resiliency and ingenuity of our workforce that we will get through this together. We have all done well to heed the direction of our Chief Public Health Officer to contain and mitigate COVID-19 in our province. We must also come together to re-energize our economy, support our workforce, and renew PEI together. Thank you very much. And at this point, I'll hand it over to Minister Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Compton. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here and provide an update on our government's support for an industry that is a pillar of Prince Edward Island's economy. The spring lobster fishery will open on May the 15th, and as many of you know, That means that our lobster fishers, the crews, the buyers, and the processors are already hard at work getting ready. The commercial oyster fishery and the clam fisheries have been delayed until May 18th. Aquaculture workers are bringing up their lines and cages as they work must continue. This year, the fisheries and aquaculture industries face extra challenges. I have engaged with fishers, the aquaculture growers, the buyers, the processors, and we prepare for the upcoming spring and summer seasons. My department has worked closely with numerous industry organizations such as the PEI Fishermen's Association and the PEI Aquaculture Alliance to better understand their challenges and how we can work with them. Our shared priority is the health and the safety of those who work in these industries. The seafood sector has shown leadership, working with Dr. Morrison and her staff to develop guidelines and protocols to conduct their operations safely on board boats, at the wharf, and in seafood processing plants during this pandemic. The second thing we agree on is that COVID-19 will have an impact on the seafood market. While it remains to be seen just how COVID-19 will change market conditions, this year we know that there will be impacts from the slowdown and shutdown of restaurants, both locally and worldwide. Our seafood products are world-class, and as economies open up, we look forward to seeing demand return. Our industry will persevere, and we will find a way through these immediate challenges. Nonetheless, PEI aquaculturists and fishers are returning to their work. I have been working with the Premier, Ministers Compton and McKay, and our staff from the departments to come up with ways in which our government can stand with fishers and aquaculturists this year. Today, I'm pleased to announce two initiatives that will ease some of the financial pressure on our fisheries and aquaculture sectors are feeling. Firstly, the PEI Fish Emergency Loan Program is a targeted loan portfolio offered by Finance PEI and PEI credit unions. These will be secured, repayable loans to assist growers and fishers. Operators will be able to borrow up to $25,000 at a rate of 4%. Interest expense will be paid by the Department of Fisheries and Communities on behalf of the borrower for the first 18 months. Additionally, principal will be deferred for the first 18 months also. Secondly, the interest relief program will be offered by Finance PEI and the Department of Fisheries and Communities to offer interest relief for loans that fishers and aquaculture operators may already have with their financial institutions. This program will offer 12 months of interest relief for fish harvesters, aquaculture operators that can demonstrate a minimum of 30% of decrease in fish-related revenues for the 2020 season. Government understands that these programs will not necessarily take up all the potential losses our seafood industry may face this year, but we hope to reduce some of the financial pressure on this important industry. We will continue to lobby the federal government to develop programs and supports for the seafood sector beyond what we are announcing here today. And I will continue to work with my colleagues across Atlantic Canada to develop programs that will assist fishers and aquaculture in what will be a challenging year. I am confident that our industry will emerge strong once the current hardships have passed. I wish all our fishers and aquaculturists a safe season and a good harvest this year. Before I turn it over to Minister McKay, I would like to recognize that it has been a tradition for islanders to go down to the local wharf or harbor to cheer on our fishers on setting day. While this support is appreciated, this year I am asking islanders to follow the public health measures and refrain from going down to the wharfs and our harbors. We want to keep our fishers and industry workers safe in the midst of this pandemic. Let's find new ways to express our support for fishers and aquaculturists. Thank you. Mr. McKay.
Thank you, Minister Fox. Good afternoon, everyone. As we approach Phase 2 of the Renew PEI Together plan, we've heard from many businesses with questions about how to reopen and operate their business. while following the new health guidelines to protect the health and safety of their staff and customers. So today, we are launching the COVID-19 Workspace Adaption Assistance Fund. This fund will cover 75% of the cost, up to $2,000, for small businesses to purchase things like plexiglass dividers, masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, and hand washing stations for their businesses. Today, I'm also pleased to provide an update on the opening of our provincial parks, golf courses, and campgrounds. On June 5th, all provincial day parks will officially open for the season. This also includes the opening of the mountain bike trails at Brookvale. A reminder that all Islanders must continue to follow the directions of the Chief Public Health Office while visiting the parks. Playgrounds at these parks will also remain closed until otherwise directed by the Chief Public Health Office. Our provincial golf courses are also set to open in the next couple of weeks. Brudenell River Golf Course and the links at Crowbush will both open on May 15th. And Dunderave Golf Course will open on May 22nd. Again, all players on the course must maintain a physical distance from each other as directed by the Chief Public Health Office. Provincial campgrounds are set to open on June 26th. However, at this time, to start, we will only be opening our campgrounds for Islanders who have previously booked their seasonal campsite prior to March 31st, 2020. This will allow us to do some major infrastructure projects that's needed at our parks and campgrounds, such as upgrading and adding more campsites at Cabot Beach, Jacques Cartier, Linkletter, Red Point, and Brudenell. For example, at Cabot Beach, we're adding 40 more service sites. And at Jacques Cartier, we will be adding 20 more service sites. We'll also be adding and upgrading Wi-Fi at all of our provincial campgrounds. We'll also be upgrading washrooms, roofs, windows, and doors for buildings around the parks. And we'll be installing more accessibility equipment and improving roads and parking around the parks. I want to reassure park staff that no one's job will be impacted by the changes to this season. And we look forward to getting to work at our provincial campgrounds very soon. A few weeks ago, our department announced we would waive all licensing, inspection, marketing, and signage fees for tourism operators that have already booked for the 2020 season. I want tourism operators to know refunds were mailed out this week, and you should be receiving them soon. Over the past couple of months, our department has rolled out many support programs for island businesses and workers during these challenging times. Some programs have now closed, but there's still many open that we encourage Islanders to look into if you haven't already. To date, our emergency working capital financing for small businesses has approved 152 loans totaling $7.5 million. For our employee gift card program, we have received 1,534 applications from employers, meaning 10,108 Sobeys gift cards have gone out to island employees who have been laid off. As for our Community Champions program, we have 73 registered champions that have given out 2,190 grocery gift cards to Islanders across the province. For our Commercial Lease Rent Deferral program, we have received 214 rent deferral agreements with a value of $1.5 million. Our COVID-19 Business Adaption Advice Program has approved 850 applications to date for island businesses, entrepreneurs, nonprofits, non-governmental organizations to access professional advice and support from the impacts of COVID-19. And as for our post-secondary student program, so far, 32 employers have been approved to hire students for the summer. For more details on all the programs I just listed and how to apply, please visit princeedwardisland.ca/COVID-19. I continue to say, I wish I had a crystal ball to know how COVID-19 will impact our economy long term. But what we can do is be prepared and put the right measures in place so we can head towards recovery. I continue to have conversations with the business community as we seek the path of economic return. We know that the last couple of months have been incredibly challenging for island businesses, and we want to assure you that we will get through this together. Thank you, and I'll open it up for questions.
Nicole Williams, CBC.
Hi there. I believe this would be for Minister Compton. I'm wondering if you can just clarify for that $3,000 a month for that fund. Is that, or sorry, the fund for essential workers? You said it's for those who make less than $3,000 in a month. I'm just wondering if you can clarify. Is that gross or net income?
That would be your gross income. Thank you for the question, Nicole.
No problem. And I believe my second question would be for you is how soon can employers apply for that fund for their workers?
So we're hoping to have the website up and running the first of next week. So I would say just to keep an eye out on the COVID-19 website. We're hoping it will be there as quickly as possible. We're still ironing out the very last details.
And any indication of when that money will get into the pockets of those workers?
Well, it will be an application from their employer, and as soon as the employer, gets the application in, we'll process it, and the funds will be distributed to that particular business. So I'm hoping as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Sarah Fraser, CBC.
Hi, Minister Compton. Have there been changes at the Prince Edward home, do you know? Specifically, have any parts of the facility been rearranged to double up rooms or empty parts of the facility?
Oh, thank you for the question, Sarah. I'm afraid I really can't answer it. It's not in my department as far as healthcare goes or long-term care. So I would say if you can direct that question to the Minister of Health, I'm sure he'll get back to you with an answer.
Sure, I will do that. Also, second question for Minister Fox, if you don't mind. You did mention there were specific measures in place for fisheries and aquaculture folks, but you didn't say what those were. I don't think those have been made public yet on the wharves and in processing. What specifically is the province doing?
Okay, if I understand your question correctly, thanks for the question. We've been working with the processors and the Wharf Harbor authorities to have discussions on what protocols they could put in place. Prime example would be Surrey. Down there, they have actually installed barriers and have security on duty to limit access to the wharf that from people that don't actually need to be there. Through our department, rural development, we've actually offered to harbor authorities that they can apply for funding under one of our programs to assist with that cost, whatever. But we're also having them conversations with the federal government and my Atlantic counterparts on what role can the federal government play in this, especially with most of our harbors and wharfs are actually controlled or managed by DFO. So we're working with them. But in the processing sector, I can tell you we've been working with them on protocols of how they can self-distance, how they can install measures that would make sure their workers are safe. But one thing I think we should understand here that there's a lot of good measures already in place in our processing sectors when it comes to social distancing or materials that they use like face shields and gowns and hair nets and stuff like that. So we're just trying to up their game a little bit and make sure that they can have as much equipment as possible or as much insight on what's going on as possible.
Yeah, that's great. I think people are interested in knowing what's going to be happening more on the boats and when fishermen leave and come in and buying, that kind of thing. What's that going to look like?
I can, as I alluded to previously, I'm very impressed with how industry has actually taken on this challenge. Through the PEIFA and the Aquaculture Alliance and our buyers and our processors, we've all been talking regularly through our department. We've been having them discussions interprovincially between Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland and Labrador, and talking and sharing ideas what the different provinces are doing or different sectors are doing. And industry has taken a leadership role in this, and they're trying very hard to make sure that it's a safe season and that the health and welfare of their workers and their staff are protected, and it's very innovative for them to do this.
Thank you.
Stu Needby, The Guardian.
Hi, good afternoon. Question to Minister McKay. Just want so in phase 2 of the Renew Together plan, basically retailers are permitted to open as of May 22nd, but it doesn't really allow the trying on of clothing in stores. So I'm just wondering if I guess like there will be an agreement that will be reached with retailers that will allow that to happen, you know, in some sort of public health fashion.
Thanks for the question, Stu. Truthfully, I don't have a whole lot of detail on that. That would be handled through the Chief Public Health Office. I know there's been numerous conversations on that sector, but I don't have any of that detail in front of me at this time.
Okay. I guess just as a follow-up, I mean, in talking to some tourism operators, I guess there's it's a bit of an open question as to sort of when or if many of them will be able to open. Is there any kind of timeline for further details on when some border restrictions will be eased, even with some provinces like New Brunswick?
Thanks for the question, Stu. I wish I knew the answer to that one. So it's one day at a time. We're going in intervals here. We'll have a better update on June 1st. We're still hopeful at some point we will get to that stage, but where it's at, we don't know. And hopefully in the coming weeks, we might have a better handle on that and what it looks like.
Okay,
Rachel
thank you.
Collier, Eastern Graphic. Rachel? Okay, John Chilliback.
Yeah, hi. I had a similar question to the one that was just posed. I understand that the Premier of PEI has talked to New Brunswick Premier Blaine Higgs about opening the border. So I wanted to get a sense from one of the PEI officials when they think that could happen optimistically.
Thanks for the question. I don't think there's any idea of a date. I think it's just been initial discussions to see if it's even a possibility and what it could look like. At the end of the day, health and safety is the most important for Prince Edward Island as well as New Brunswick. So I know they're going to continue discussions, but as far as I know, there's been no such date or anything expressed at this point.
Sorry, just a follow-up to that. How much would it mean to PEI's tourism industry if, all of North America is basically forced to be in a staycation, but if PEI and New Brunswick did open that one border, given that we're sort of an oasis against COVID right now?
Oh, it would be huge. So, once again, we went from a record-breaking tourism season last year to once again we were hoping for another record-breaking year, and within a couple months, our tourism industry has lost a great deal of traction. So anything at this point would help. We certainly hope we get to that point, but as of having an answer of when and what it looks like, we don't know yet. But I'm just happy that there's discussions taking place, and hopefully we'll work towards that.
Laurent Rigaud, La Voix.
Good afternoon. I have a question for Minister Compton about the help for the essential workers who have less than $3,000 a month. Is it for every essential workers which are listed on the website? I mean, how do you decide who is an essential worker and who is not?
Sorry, I'm listening to this.
It is for every essential worker as per the list put out by the Chief Public Health Office. So anyone on that list who is earning $3,000 or less on a 4-week period will be eligible for the $1,000.
Okay. And I just have another question for you. Is there any news for an update of the fiscal update you provided at the beginning of April?
The one thing I'll say is we're looking at the spend for COVID very closely. Everything is going to Treasury Board, all of the proposals, and we are keeping a very close eye on what the expenditures are. And we look forward to sharing that with the opposition and the third party when we have a sitting of the legislature.
Thank you.
I believe someone joined the line late there. Is there anyone else?
That's great. That's it for questions. Thank you. And thank you all Islanders. Once again, we appreciate your patience. And as we have more updates, we'll be back. So thank you and take care. Stay safe.